Welcome to everyone who's joining us. We're going to get started in just a minute here, give people a chance to join in the meeting. But we're going to have an awesome workshop from Mary Kate and Hal. They've got some fantastic information prepared for you. So if you miss any part of this workshop, it is being recorded and it will be available on our website within 24 to 48 hours. And you can check out all the other workshops that are available this week. As well as we have one more workshop after this one. So you can head over to stormwaterawareness.org and find all those workshops and watch the keynotes and see what the event is about. So I'm going to hand it over to Mary Kate and Hal because it is 2 o'clock here in California and it's 5 o'clock for them. So thank you guys so much for being willing to present.
Hi guys, my name is Mary Kate. I'm actually employed at WGR Southwest and I'm stationed in Florida. I am absolutely thrilled to be able to bring to you somebody who's got decades of experience inside the stormwater field in Florida, Hal Lunsford, and we're just going to be talking about various points about stormwater compliance in Florida and just really the importance of being compliant in stormwater, new developments within the FDEP, and some infrastructure changes. So without further ado, let me shoot this introduction over to Hal. He can introduce himself, and then I'll jump into the questions. So Hal, go ahead and take it away.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Hal Lunsford. I've worked for both public and private sector. I worked about 30 years in the public sector and every form of environmental that you could possibly get in. I started out in air back in my after I got out of college, and worked in landfills, underground storage tanks, wetlands, haz waste, and then finally stormwater, which is my favorite place to be because it's got so much things we got to do with it. But I've been an environmentalist for 46 years. So I have done a stint for about 10 years in the private sector for one of the largest road paving companies in Florida. Yeah, a lot of my environmental friends said I went to the dark side of the force, but hey, they paid really well at that time. And so I did convert them. I got them recycling, which was a great deal, and that was a great thing. But anyway, let's get started, Mary Kate, with our questions. I said I would try to do my darn best for Mary Kate on these questions, and I've been pondering them for about 3 weeks. And let's see, we got somebody got to admit. Let's see, Brian, I put you in there. You're in there, Brian. Okay. Anyway, we're going to start with these questions, and it's the following questions, again, around regulations and stuff like that deal with compliance. A lot of this is almost all compliance. And it says, what do you find is the number one issue that most sites miss in regards to stormwater compliance at their site? And this is number one. And then my best answer there would be, let's say it this way: the most important BMP in regards to stormwater compliance is the individual, which is the BMP. Yes, we got the individual is the most important BMP because they need to understand how to properly install, how to monitor it, how to complete those inspections correctly, all of those things. And so the most important BMP you have on your job site is that person. And so with proper education, as far as proper installation, being trained there correctly, maintenance, how to do the maintenance. Hey, a lot of people install it and forget it. Yep. Seems to be the question we see in Florida a lot. And then actually doing the every 7 calendar day inspections. And after a rain event of a ½ inch or greater, we have a requirement within 24 hours to get out there and do an inspection. So two of my associates that I worked with, still work with at the International Erosion Control Association, both David Pearson and Christy Aspach, they're members of the International Erosion Control Association like myself. I've been a member since 2003. And so anyway, they're on the sediment and erosion control education committee with me. I was chairman. I gave it up to Christy and let her be the new chair. and I'm still working in that group. And they wrote an article. Every year we write an article for the International Erosion Control Association. It's Environmental Connection magazine. And this past July, they put out an article that really focused in on the individual as the BMP here, folks. And this article covered the importance of having people that are trained to actually understand what they're doing. Most of the time, superintendent or a general contractor goes, "Hey, Sam, come here." And he hands him a shovel, hands him a sledgehammer, and a big roll of silt fence, and that's it. That's all his training. And, and it's sad. It's really sad to see that. And, anyway, I sent, there's a link to the Environmental Connection magazine. If you don't have it, you can go online and look at the International Erosion Control Association and look at the July 24th, 2024 article on page 22 and 23, I think it is. And so take a look at that. But it really goes in a lot about how important this one BMP, I call it a two-legged BMP, and much more important than the silt fence, folks. We got to get there. So the next question that
all right. So the next question that I have for you, Hal, is can you give us an idea of how the CGP is being modified in Florida? And then again, what ramifications would this update have for sites getting in compliance?
Yeah, and in fact, I've been bird dogging these folks over at DEP. Now I'm retired. I'm an actual private citizen, and I can drive them crazy. And so I've been calling, I've been sending emails, everything. And I only got one person to respond to this question. And they said that they are still working with the US EPA to resolve their issues. They didn't say exactly what their issues were, and revising the CGP, the Construction Generic Permit, for all you folks that don't know what CGP means, but by 2025. Of course, again, no details, and they're very close to vest these days, folks. I mean, you got to realize we got a whole different group over the circus right now. So that's the way it is in public government. Now, the second issue that Mary Kate brought out was achieving or not achieving compliance. That's a big issue, folks. And a recent public employee for environmental responsibility, PEER, as we call them here in Florida. I was a member of PEER for years when I worked in the Department of Environmental Protection, and but I still keep up with them. They send me all the reports. Let me get Joy in there, and the Florida report for 2023 that they pulled together was so. I don't know if it's great or not. It is really, really shows that the state has walked back all their enforcement greatly. And this is because of the political tides that we have now. We got a lot of political tides in Florida that are pulling super conservative, really definitely overboard pro-business at the expense of our water quality here in the state of Florida. They really don't get it. They just don't get it, folks. If you don't have water, I don't care how many billions of people you want to load into a subdivision. You don't have water for them to drink. They're going back up north, folks. That's what we say here in Florida, is they'll probably go back. Recently, the governor vetoed the Safe Waterways Act, which would have made a powerful tool for folks in the regulatory part to warn the public about dangerous levels of pollutants, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and all the other things that get in our water. Also, it's important that PEER report from the 2023 shows the enforcement numbers are severely, really dove down in the last two governorships that we've had. And it's not just voting regulations are being gerrymandered these days. It's the enforcement of environmental regulations as well to protect the most important resource in Florida, which is water quality. Folks, it's just like in class, I usually tell everybody, I said, how many percent of water on the planet is drinkable? I hear a little crickets in the background. The cricket says 1%. Yeah, about 1 to 2% of all water is drinkable on this planet. The rest is either polluted by us crazy humans or too saline to drink. So, hey, 1%, folks, we got to be really careful. It's like having a box of matches, don't have one match left to light the candle with, folks. I mean, here we are. We're stuffing the ballot right now by putting so many blasted people in Florida. We went from about 14.5 million people in 1995 to 22, 23 million. I mean, yeah, we're stuffing it now. And so we're really killing ourselves here. So
I mean, I'm going to have to move you on from that question just for the sake of time, Hal, but yeah, it's very important that we actually protect our water quality. The next question I have for you is that I've heard some complaints from companies that the cost of stormwater BMP implementation is just super high, and especially for permanent BMPs like bioretention basins, exfiltration tank installations. So what would you suggest as cost-effective stormwater control measures? Are there cheaper alternatives that you would advise?
Well, first of all, these are both permanent BMPs. They're not temporary like your silt fences and stuff like that. And so companies got to realize their engineer designed this site. They found this was the most cost-effective way for them to go was to build these things, the bioretention basins or the exfiltration tanks. Either one, yeah, I agree. Yes, they can be very expensive, but considering where we need to be with stormwater is another question to them, is that we have this old gray infrastructure. You got a city of Tampa or something like that, and there's about every quarter mile, there's one curb inlet. For a city that went from, 20,000 people to half a million now, and they have nowhere for the water to go. So, that kind of deal. So we got to think that gray infrastructure, again, the old curb and gutter stuff does not treat not one bit the nutrients in the water. Nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and other contaminants, as well as they can be. Green infrastructure will do a much better job at it. Again, bioretention has uptakes and biologically removes nutrients used, BAM, biologically activated medias that will actually remove that nutrient. And it's right now with so many impaired water bodies in Florida, we got over 38 to 40 impaired water bodies in our Florida area. We have Florida bodies that have been identified as polluted, come under our 3D list, which is impaired or threatened identifications for water bodies that no longer meet the state water quality standards. So we have what we call a WIBID, and another little word that DEP uses a lot. It's usually a water body identification, and it's a number that they put so they can't say the actual stream or water body, so people don't freak out that their water's contaminated or polluted. And our concerns that DP under the Basin Management Action Planning Group, which is BMAP, that's where I worked the last 10 years, are watching and even walking these WIBITs to determine how to remediate and to restore these water bodies that are impaired for nitrogen, phosphorus, and other contaminants. So again, we have 38 or more water bodies that are polluted, including Silver Springs, which everybody used to love and enjoy. Now nitrogen is destroying it, so it's sad. Okay, Mary.
All right, fantastic. And then I have another question for you that is about the widely changing climate in Florida. There's just a lot of stormwater to watch out for with the hurricanes and all the storms blowing in. So what are your recommended stockpiles that some construction companies should keep on site to help maintain and repair any BMPs during these severe weather events.
Yeah, and climate change is here, despite what the politicians and the naysayers trying to keep their heads in the sand, saying that there's no such thing as global warming or climate change. I mean, we see it. I see it every day, and I see it in the numbers, see it in the photos, see the flooding. Downtown Jacksonville floods now. City of Miami, it floods on King Tide. You know, and we could see by 2050 at least a 15 to 18 inch sea level rise in all around the state of Florida. So that's going to put a lot of areas underwater in Florida, because I mean, they're barely existing now above the water. And by 2100, by the end of the century, we're looking at a meter sea level rise in Florida. Yeah, 3 feet or more. Yeah. So I can actually say that I wouldn't tell politicians, tell them sell a lot of floats because people are going to need them. And so they're got to realize this is a real thing. We've changed. Us humans, we are in the Anthropocene epoch, and we have changed our environment. We've impacted it. We got the tundra is literally melting in the poles. And so it's the carbon is actually releasing. We're getting a more and more exasperation of this problem. So eventually the politicians will drown their own short-sightedness, is what I'm hoping is the case in this thing. Now, you also had to teach students in Florida, under the Florida Stormwater Erosion and Sediment Control Inspectors course, that to always include a hurricane and disaster plan in their stormwater pollution plans. Always, every plan I write, I got a disaster plan written in there. Not a requirement of the state at all, but I put it in there. Mainly it's I always start this plan, have it where it kicks off June the 1st. So each person would have a recommendation to load up on silt fences they will need, wood stakes, hey, you got to replace them, sandbags, silt saver type products such as base strand reinforced fencing, the non-woven type fabrics, the silt saver curb inlets and inlet covers, the brown top millet for erosion control, wattles, polyacrylamide and flock logs, rolled erosion control products, sheet plastic. I even use sheet plastic like a raincoat on sites, and it works, folks. It really does. So the list grows dependent on what project you have, and then if you have a hurricane wipes out your project and your BMPs, instead of standing there and having to call and find out you can't get a hold of anybody for silt fence or anything like that, guess what? You're prepared. You're emergency prepared in your own blasted plan. I mean, that's a no-brainer thing to have an emergency plan in every stormwater plan. And so there is no storm. And then if there's no storm happen, then I use up that supplies after November the 1st. I actually will just use them up all the way through winter. June 1st comes again, water my big stockpile again. So that's it. All right, Mary.
All right. And then what is the most misused erosion and sediment control measure that you've seen on the site? And which erosion and sediment control measures do you commonly find installed incorrectly?
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. Without hesitation, I have to say that a sedimentation type BMP that we should look at the most is the one that's overused to begin with, which is black silt fence. Black woven silt fence, often incorrectly installed. It won't be installed deep enough, or it's or compacted on each side properly, or just plain that's not maintained. People just, once they install it, they think, oh, I'm done. And they don't realize that stuff is only good for about 6 months, maybe even less, because subcontractors will run it over half the time. So definitely the black silt fence is the #1 sediment control that tends to get that is so poorly installed and incorrectly installed. And then the second one is erosion control, which I have to say, temporary grassing is number one. You just don't see nobody using it in the state of Florida. Temporary grassing for temporary stabilization. If you're going to be away from a portion of your job site, need to apply good temporary grassing. Folks, it pays a dividend. You don't have erosion. And just like I've heard Barry Fagan up in Alabama, an engineer I know, and I respect him because he taught some of the classes I've taken at Auburn University. He said, you stop that raindrop impact and you stop the erosion process altogether. And that's just, it's so easy. I mean, I tell my students after that, I say, now you put your fingers in the air and don't listen to me or go to sleep, because that's the most important point in class, is to stop that raindrop impact. You stop the whole process, folks. All right, Mary, next. We got to get going here, girl.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Getting compliant with the city, state, and federal requirements of the site, that seems like such a huge hassle for anybody on site, construction, civil engineers, getting all your permits, your environmental permits, your oil spill prevention permits. Is there a way a site can ensure that they don't fall through the cracks regarding obtaining all the permits they might need for their site?
Well, I know you said something about California. Y'all had it really easy made because y'all already had a document that required a lot of this. Unfortunately, Florida doesn't have any gun to our head or anything about the most relaxed about erosion sediment control there is. So yes, don't assume that you have all the permits from the city, county, or the state, whoever's jurisdiction you're stepping in. And when writing my stormwater pollution prevention plans, I make sure I have a checklist with me to verify, what kind of permits I might accidentally need. And I want those permits before I apply for finish up my stormwater pollution plan. I want those in my hand. We have the ERP, which is environmental resource permit, as far as construction of our stormwater ponds. That's your engineer. He's supposed to, or she's supposed to have already got this permitted through the state. And if you haven't seen it in your hand, hey, I'm sorry, you can't start the job till you have that permit in hand. Is the way I've always been. Now, also there's issues such as contamination locator map. I deal a lot of dewatering in the state. And Mary probably, Mary Kate, but we're real close. Our groundwater is real close to the surface. And so a lot of jobs require us, before we can put a structure down in the ground, I got to dewater. So I use what they call the contaminator locator map that was put together by state DEP. And anyway, DEP made this map available to everybody. So you go in and you find your site and you look within 500 feet of you to see if there's any dewatering activities that may have contamination. And if there is, you go to that site and you go to the, ICR map, which is the institutional controls map. And I look to see if that site has been remediated. If it's been remediated, we're good. So Florida's been on this also, where we have both stormwater and groundwater are now in one permit under our CGP. As of February 2015 is when that took place. So again, I check these maps out thoroughly. I teach my students how to use that contamination locator map and the ICR maps as well. So it's very important that we do these. Okay, Mary?
Thank you so much for that. And then sites that don't have all their permits, say, for example, they get a surprise inspection. Is there a warning and an advisory notice given before any sort of fines are given to them should any surprise inspection occur?
Yes and no. If there's no inspection, they can get away scot-free. It's just like the highway patrol out here. If they're asleep in their car and not doing any speed traffic, there's nobody gets a ticket. Well, Florida, and we got to hope that somebody complained to the state that there's an egregious location, there's a lot of illicit discharges going on or something, Anyway, wakes them up. They go, I got to go out and actually do a compliance inspection to see if these people are complying. So they go out. Florida, by chance, inspects and finds that you're not permitted. Oh my gosh. Then they issue after their inspection, they'll give you a warning notice that actually advises you that you have violations observed and that you lack the CGP, the construction generic permit, or whatever other permit, your lack of stormwater pollution prevention plan, and again, it may be the ERP. You don't have any. I went out to one site, they had a stormwater pond already built, but guess what? They didn't have an overflow structure, and it was overflowing the backside of the pond, about to blow out. I mean, no engineering at all. I was like, oh no. And there was houses downhill from this pond. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just a liability of that. And then the failure to comply ends up normally, if they don't do anything or they don't respond to all the issues, then we write a notice of violation, an NOV, and this is subject to fines. And we base that off of what they call a penalty matrix. We have this little chart. We look up whatever egregiousness of the case is, and we put these penalties together, be it illicit discharges or discharges that are going into waters of the state. All these things, we add up that bill, and last one I wrote up was about $184,000 one, and that was way back in 2000. Oh my gosh, 2010. Been in some years. So usually it ends up finally in a meeting, and we have a consent order that actually these are the ordered items that this violator has to comply with, and they sign it. Their president or whoever owns the company, they come in, meet, they usually have their lawyers throw the bones up in the air and say, okay, we'll sign it. And then they pay their fine. Yep, pay their fine. So what are the most, go ahead there, Mary, jump to the next one here because we're getting short on time. Oh, I can't hear you.
You're muted.
There you go. You're muted.
Sorry about that. The dog's barking in the background, so I'm muting just to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Oh, that's all right. We know you got a dog.
So what are the most common reasons that a site has issues with a municipality?
All right. Now, this is something I have dealt with some. We have what they call illicit discharges that the state or the county of jurisdiction enforce against anything that discharges illicitly into their stormwater management systems. And this comes under MS4, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems. Whew, man, that's hard for a Southern boy to say all in one word, I tell you. But anyway, MS4s, they have the jurisdiction and they have to enforce these. Municipalities do. And they're permitted by DEP to enforce these violations. Yep. City of Jacksonville happens to be probably the toughest one in the state. They're great people. I'm excited to go to Jacksonville every time because they do an excellent job over there. Okay.
Thank you so much for that. And we still have around 20 minutes, and we'll open up the floor to anybody who has any questions. So we're just going to wrap up the interview with the remaining 20 minutes, and then I'll let anybody who has any questions ask them and get Hal some more experience. So in this, regarding post-construction standards with the municipality, typically what I've seen in California is there's some sort of a LIDS requirement for sites to meet in order to actually remain compliant with the municipality. So is there anything similar like that in the state of Florida regarding post-construction documents that need to be produced and agreed upon with the city?
Unfortunately, Florida does not have a what I call post-construction requirement. And I know state of California, I envy y'all with the Caltrans and all their, wow, they have an excellent program out there. But Florida, unfortunately, is anemic when it comes to post-construction. Basically, they throw the grass on the dirt and they get their check in hand and they're gone. And that's it. And it's left up to the owner to do whatever it takes to keep that site from eroding. Yep.
And then would you recommend that BMPs and for any construction site in Florida be checked daily by a site manager to ensure there's no issues, or are the weekly inspections sufficient within Florida state?
Yeah, the state CGP, construction generic permit for all those that are not familiar with the terminology, and it requires that every 7 calendar days or after a rain event of a ½ inch or greater in the state of Florida, you have to inspect within 24 hours of that event. This is not excluding any weekends or holidays. Yeah, weekends and holidays are not. I've done inspections middle of 4th of July, and they're firing up fireworks right in the middle of my inspection, and so yeah, I've had to do those, and so this seems adequate since it's hard to get construction companies to even do the weekly inspections in a timely manner. I found that as an inspector for DEP, checking on people that actually were some of them were in my class, and they should know better. And I get out their sites and they haven't been doing their weekly inspections, and you can really tell. So sometimes you just got to keep on top of it. It's hard. I know. It's like my job superintendent and my GCs out there. Every one of them say, "Man, I'm here to build this building or build this road or this new interstate or this no overpass." They're not out there to do stormwater at all. Their brain is totally devoid of that. And so I have, when I worked for 10 years for the private sector, I was again in a road construction company. I was their chief environmentalist and safety person. And so I had to do, I would do daily inspections only when the level of land clearing activities and soil disturbance was at its maximum. Usually during the clearing and grubbing phase is where you got a lot of illicit discharges and discharges occur because you're disturbing the soil. And those discharge points are actually going to change, and they're going to be in violation. They're going to be called turbidity violation, sediment violation, stuff like that. So you had to stay on top of it by daily inspecting these sites where you have a lot of earth moving going on.
Thank you so much. Then I have this question for you. What would you say is an exciting new tool for the field of stormwater?
Well, I don't know if it's a new tool, but I call it a new tool. By far, I have to say use of computers and computer technology such as cloud storage for filing and for wireless technologies that we have now. Back in 2000, I didn't have. I used to have to do everything in paper. Now I use an Apple tablet. Had it here just a minute ago. But I carry this little beast with me, and it's got a camera, it's got that, it's tied into the internet. I can send, as soon as I finish my report, I do an electronic report that DOT, thank God, has an electronic form. So I just pull their form off and I use their form on their inspection sites. As soon as I finish that inspection, I send it immediately to my guy that's doing my repairs and maintenance. I'll send him an email, or I tell him go look in the little the drive, and this cloud storage system can be a Google Drive, it can be a OneDrive, which I use a lot, and then Dropbox is what we used to use in the old days. There's many types of cloud storages out there, very useful for us to use. And I remember again those days when I had to do my paper inspection. Then I went back to office. I retyped it because nobody could read my left-handed writing. And then it'd take me 2 days after I've done my inspection to get it out to the field. Way too long when you only got 7 days to do repair and maintenance on these things. So yes, wireless technology is the greatest thing since instant grits. and it speeds up the transmittal of repair orders to your inspection, from your inspections straight out to your crews immediately so they can get started on this. Also, one of my relatives, or I should say my wife's relatives, he's a developer. He builds subdivisions, and he was a drone guy in the military, and he came out and he still uses drones to assist him in viewing his subdivision daily. And it looks not only for erosion and sediment control issues, he looks at his subcontractors and find out where they're screwing up the sites are at. So he can stay on top of his problems. Folks, y'all live in a wonderful age. I'm at 67, man. That's like, golly, I should have been born about. I shouldn't have been born as back there in the Stone Age. I need to be about 20 years younger. I would really enjoy this technology, but haven't bought my first drone yet. I'm working on it.
And then I have a follow-up question. Dan has a question asking, what software do you use for, inputting all of the inspections?
All the information.
Yeah.
Again, you can go to Florida DOT's website, and they have a downloadable form with instructions, and it's completely electronic. So, and it's just touch. You touch it and it fills in. You put like at number 2, and it puts like, if I put 6 in, silt fence automatically populates. And so when you finish up, you can go down to the bottom and electronically sign your inspection. You put your date on there electronically, and then you can send it to the responsible authority to get their signature on the inspection. But while you're waiting on him, I don't wait for nobody. I go ahead and send an email or text message, or even send a link to my foreman over my repair and maintenance crew, and get him out there an hour after I've been finished with my inspection report. He's out there getting it, getting my repairs made, because I know I got 7 calendar days to do it in. So that's what's so wonderful about the technology today, folks. Y'all are in a wonderful time. And this stuff will be paled in the future, have all this liquid storage and stuff you're talking about now. Wow.
Fantastic. And then for another question I have for you, for sites where storing exfiltration tanks or sediment basins causes an issue, be that space, how would you keep that site compliant with stormwater, say with illicit discharge, or they're not able to discharge stormwater off their site, say there's a spill that hasn't been addressed within 500 feet, how would you deal with that, or recommend that they deal with that? Are there any alternative methods that could be provided so that they don't have to worry about illicit discharges, or how to treat the water, or keep it from discharging?
I do know that the county or cities that enforce the illicit discharge notices, they cite fines right up front, and they expect the repairs to be made in 7 calendar days, or the fines get turn up the boiling water and get the little frog to jump type thing. And I see that a lot with Jacksonville. They're really their DEQ, Division of Environmental Quality over there. They did, oh my gosh, an excellent job at being able to get people's attention. I have a lot of friends that are contractors over there, and they call me up. They can't do this. I'm like, oh, yes, they can. They sure can. They can make your life miserable. So it's important to pay attention to illicit discharges, folks. Don't forget about them,
And then what about linear projects? So installing conduit, telephone lines, what regulations do you need to get? What regulations do you need to meet? Are these required to be permitted? What do you need to do ahead of time for any projects like those?
Well, I'm going to digress back one to your previous question. I sort of jumped ship there on the answer there. Again, new developers and engineers and planners have to embrace what you were talking about was exfiltration tanks and sediment basins that causes an issue. And how they would address this is that they need to look the green infrastructure they have chosen, their engineers chosen, be it a bioswale and the littoral shelves or low impact planter boxes, green roofs, rain gardens, permeable pavements, which is a really big thing nowadays, and rain harvesting and stormwater bump outs and old technology such as a tree, folks. Yeah, wow, a tree. It takes out more carbon and it can remove water big time, folks. So when they're clearing these sites, they need to think, hey, do I really need to clear all these trees? Let them do their job, folks. You can't improve on a tree. That's what. See, I told you I was going to be talking before the Lorax thing about saving the trees, folks. I always do. And now back to your other question, number 13 there. Are linear projects, such as projects installing conduit, telephone lines, and other regulated items to obtain any kind of permit through the CGP? And yeah, they do in the state of Florida. We do get permits for underground directional drillers, people putting in piping, putting in other utilities, fiber optics, water, gas lines. We have a lot of gas lines come through Florida. I mean, these are not little pipelines. These are huge pipelines, go right down through the middle of a swamp. So they need to get ERP permits, environmental resource permits. They have to handle their erosion and sediment control under their CGPs, all that stuff, just like a road project or a new Walmart or a new subdivision. They have to do it. And then here's another one that's been on the market here lately. And I went to a RE conference up in Atlanta last year. Solar installation. Oh my gosh, that has become a monster target now for a lot of the enforcement people because there's a lot they're not doing as far as erosion control. So that's another one. It's another industry that is similar to the linear projects. But on linear projects, we do require an underground utilities locations be done prior to any digging or excavation activities in Florida under the Florida Sunshine 811. And that 811 program, in fact, I just happened to see on my desk is this little thing here, florida811.com. Yeah, I used to do all the utility locates for the company I worked for. And I mean, I knew every inch of road. And within, 48 hours, they'd be out there. The utility companies would show up. They'd flag off there's different colors for gas and water and everything else. So we knew where that line was when we went to go out there, dig a big gigantic trench, put in a big pipe. We didn't want to run into a fiber optic cable without that 811 being called in. 811 would actually go out and they would identify these areas. Now, that's very important that you do this because it's very expensive. One fiber optic cable, you cut that thing, you're looking at over $100,000 fine, possibility of 5 years in the clinker too. Yeah, they're serious here in Florida. They don't mess around. You can't plant as much as a daisy in the ground without that 811 on a commercial project. Yeah, if I'm going to plant a tree, I will call 811. Oh, my guys are like, well, you're doing that for a tree? I'm like, yeah, because if I dig on that surface and I cut a utility, gas pipeline, water line, a fiber optic cable, I'm responsible for that big time.
And that's so important for everybody to know. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
All right. And then I'm just going to shoot one other question your way. Because while I've been down in the state of Florida, I see a lot of sites that just aren't compliant. And I know that they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants, just not really caring about it, or either there's not a lot of education. I mean, I walked into the county development center and I pretty much asked them about their stormwater compliance program. They just said, "Oh, we don't worry about that here." So what would you? I
thought the answer would be what program?
What was that?
What program? They don't give a hoot. All they worry about is building it and build Florida out. It's like the old cartoon that I had on my wall at DEP. I had Florida, a big map. I had everything was paved and there was buildings all the way around the coastline, and they had a white line down to all the way down to Key West. That was it. There was nothing that wasn't impervious. And I said, that's what builders want right there. Yeah. The Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic were their stormwater ponds. So
My goodness. Well, how would you say we should really build awareness of the issue? Because I know we've got a lot of we've got a lot of problems with water pollution in our native Florida rivers and everything. So, what would you say would be a really good method to just build awareness and bring education back onto
yeah.
sites? Because that's really what we need a lot of right now. So, what would you recommend?
Well, first of all, it's like each one of us have our citizens first in the state of Florida. If you're living in the state or either any of the states that y'all all live in, some of you live in California, some live in Oregon, like Rebecca, or did live in Oregon, now you're in California. But each one of us have a responsibility as citizens to protect our environment. Well, I mean, we may not have a badge on or something like that we can go out and write violations on, but we got a responsibility. And that's why I say, first thing you do, you pick up that phone here and you worry those state representatives. I don't care if you're what party they're a member of, drive them care. I don't care if you're a MAGA or whatever, call those people, worry the horns off them. Don't let them forget they're your employee, not the other way around. A lot of people think, oh, these big guys they're rich and they are.
All right. So these are some questions. Those are the questions that I had for Hal today, and I see that there's some questions in the chat. While he answers those questions, these are the references or links that you can go to that he's referenced inside this presentation today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send him an email at lunsfordenvironmental@gmail.com, or you can send me an email and I'll follow up with him, try to get the answer to you. There's other resources such as the Welcome to Florida by Chad Scott podcast on Pandora. So without further ado, Hal, you ready for some questions from the chat?
All right. I was looking here at the chat room. I haven't seen anything yet.
All right. So what I see in the chat room is
I saw one that was on the. Well, I got one here from John. Welcome Stormwater. Okay, that was it. It said Welcome Stormwater Awareness Week. Yeah, that's good. And then thank you for joining. If you have any questions, Michael, I have problems finding the link, so we'll. Or say all of this year's workshops are they listed in your Stormwater Awareness Week, and this is something that Mary Kate and them would have that link that you can go to stormwaterawareness.org, and that's important to go there. Also. What are the biggest pollution challenges in Florida's runoff, it says here. And it's like right now we had Lake Okeechobee about 3 or 4 years ago. We call it Lake Guacamole. And it was from so much nutrient levels going into it. A lot of people try to point their finger back at agricultural waste, which has a lot to do with it. Our nitrogen, phosphorus overuse in this state is ridiculous. Especially because we're sandy soil, folks, and it just goes straight down, straight to the river or creek or into our big lakes like this. But we had cities along that Lake Okeechobee area that they don't even they're loaded up with septic tanks. And again, Florida's got a long ways to go. They got to get away from so much septic use and get some better treatment process going there. And but our discharge points throughout the state are just destroying and impairing more and more of our water bodies. In fact, the lake right here, Lake Talcott, I live next to, is definitely impaired. It has nitrogen way above, but it's from Georgia, actually going into our lake here with their stream that's polluting it. So let's see, with Florida being the highest vulnerable sea level rise and extreme weathers, there are plans to update the stormwater regulations and address these increasing risks, particularly in coastal areas. I wonder about that because we do have, folks spending tons of money on hurricane planning and all this and disaster management and stuff. But I don't see the two paths for stormwater and hurricane emergency preparedness come together. That is something that needs to come together. And they need to start talking about this, folks, because the sea level rise is here to stay. It's not going to go away anytime soon. And we've got to learn to adapt. That's one thing that humans have been doing for the last 300,000 years. We've adapted all the way from little small creatures to two-legged creatures we are today. And we've learned how to pollute this planet at its maximum best. We really have. And like in that book, The Lorax, yeah, speak for the trees, folks. Get out there, get on your phone where your state representatives and your legislative folks in the Senate. Also, don't be bashful. Write that governor. I almost said stupid governor. I didn't mean that. But yeah. Anyway, write that governor and worry him to death. And then don't forget about EPA. Write them. They're the guys that can come down and get life tough. They just took the 404 program away, which is wetland and dredge and fill from the state. They just let it to state of Florida back about 3 years ago. Now by court order, they actually took the program away from state DEP. They had done such a terrible job of enforcing the regulations there. So that shows you EPA is paying attention. I speak to some of my friends at EPA in Atlanta, and they're bone serious that they're going to get Florida's attention. If not, they're going to take their stormwater programs over and take all that huge pile of money, grant money, away from them. And then they're going to set up little EPA offices all over Florida. And contractors are not going to be happy. As I don't know if any of you have ever seen state fines start like 10, 20,000 max, type the little small fines. EPA, they start like 40,000 for each discharge point. So if you got 3 discharge points, man, there goes your salary for the year, I mean, it's that quick. So yeah, again, get on that phone. Be like the Lorax. Speak for not for the trees in this case, but for water. Speak for water, folks. We got to get out there and get this straightened out. And it worries me seeing the political climate we have now as people tend to be, they're like wanting to do away with government and do away with regulations. And, my granddad, he had this discussion with me. He said, why do y'all have so many regulations at DEP and all that kind of stuff? I was working in waste management. I said, okay, good example. Your grandsons, both of them, they're about 4 and 6 years old. They like to play on your property down there. He owned about 8 or 9 acres, and next door another 8 or 9 acres. I said, what if Sam over next door, he sells his property to an industrial, and they dig this big gigantic hole in the ground over there, and they start putting this blue goo, big 50-gallon tanks over there and burying them in the property. Oh, they can't do that. I said, no, you said no regulation. The reason we have regulations is to make life safe for everyone, not just one person, but make it safe. Same way with drinking water, folks. We have 1% of that water. And if we don't take care of it, we're going to be drinking out of the ocean here.
Thank you so much, Hal. I think there's one other question that I saw that says, does the state require development projects to implement low impact development? I think you answered that one, but how does that work for many areas of the state where groundwater may be shallow? So possibly about BMPs, how would those work with shallow groundwater?
Yeah, and shallow, you're right, Florida. I mean, I can dig down in most people's yards down about 2 feet or 3 feet, and I'll hit water, sometimes even a foot below the ground. So we have to use alternative treatments. We have, we got detention ponds, which normally it's where the engineer will run. All it does is attenuate the water coming off the parking lot or off a road. It takes that load of water, slows it down, and then supposedly safely discharges it right straight into wetlands and into the nearby water bodies and creeks here. without any stormwater treatment involved at all, unless there's a littoral shelf planted around it. About the only thing that will remove nitrogen and phosphorus. But again, it's not that efficient. Also, there was a subdivision built back a few years ago on the west coast over there that had built a better way by the University of Florida, did a whole film on it. It's super, building a better way. If you can still find that old video, it was excellent. The guy did a way by building a subdivision, keeping the majority of the trees, keeping all his wetlands and other grasses down, and have docks that were built up so they would be able to walk over these wetlands instead of impacting the wetlands. And then they made their yards where they bioabsorb. They actually made them porous yards using different things like drivable lawn is one of those that will allow water to infiltrate right back into the ground. Then instead of having a 2-lane, 24-foot wide road, they had like one small road with little side pockets so you could actually pull over and let the other person pass. So they had less impact. And then they had their stormwater actually going to bioswales and things like that with plants and littorals and stuff that actually they eliminated the need for all these huge stormwater ponds that, again, you like you say, the water's near the surface of the ground. You need to work with nature. Nature does a better job than all us humans do. I guarantee you. Hey, Mary?
And yeah, we've got about 5 minutes left. And how does the state balance flood control with water quality? By addressing the one, are we addressing the other? Or can the goals conflict with each other? Is another question I saw in the chat.
Yeah, we got Flood Defenders is one group here in Florida and the Panhandle. They actually get out and champion the common citizen with flood control issues that we have. But flood control and water quality are not synonymous. They're not separate. It's just like I was told Mary Kate the other day, that doing the right thing is not synonymous from each other. You can, with everything you do on a job site, it costs money, but then again, you save money by actually building things a better, like that movie said, there's a building a better way using plants and stuff like that, bioswales and stuff. So we can do a better job in Florida. We haven't so far. We haven't had the initiative to get it there. We did have the University of Central Florida that was our Stormwater Academy, and it has been so underfunding, and it's literally just tanked. The whole program has. It's not what it used to be. So I'm kind of disappointed there. Again, we had the 319 grant money from the EPA for years that ran the program that I teach now. And, I rewrote the actual manual, this manual that we have here in the state. And we have still back here a copy of the CGP in the back, all 24 pages of it.
And I don't see you. I think your camera's.
Oh, you don't see me? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have my camera on. Okay, let's see. Where's my camera?
Just so that they can see the and everything.
There we go. Now, I'm sorry, folks. I was making y'all pay attention to the presentation. Instead of my ugly mug. But this is our book here in Florida that we have, and it's 9 chapters. In the back of the book, we have what we call the construction generic permit here. And that's construction generic permit was of 2015. This is written in plain English, so it's very easy. It's 9 parts of it. It's real basic. And it's easy to write your own stormwater pollution plan. I don't have to hire an engineering firm or call me. Heck, I just got through writing a New York state stormwater pollution plan. Just got through looking at one for Miami International Airport just a few days ago. So I'm constantly writing because people are chicken of it, but I keep telling them. Again, we have the Environmental Connection magazine. This one of those magazines I do write for, and it's an excellent. It's through the International Erosion Control Association. If you interested in joining that agency, or not association, not an agency, this is one of the top educational groups that you'll find in the world. They're connected in Australia, New Zealand, Chile. I even have my co-chair. He lives in Bologna, Italy, of all things. Try to do a Zoom with somebody living in Bologna, Italy, and one in China, and one down in Central America, and one in Australia. Now there's something for you. But we did that. We had people up at midnight for our meeting. But it's interesting.
We've got 1 minute left, so just to give other people time to get to other workshops, go to Stormwater Awareness Week. We've got other workshops.
Take care.
And thank you so much, Hal, for just all your time and being a wonderful resource for anybody. Trust me, guys, he is amazing. If you have any questions about Florida permitting or anything like that, do take advantage of him as a resource.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hal. Thank you, Mary Kate. And we hope you all can join us for the last workshop of the day or the rest of the week. So head over to stormwaterawareness.org to find out more information or watch any portion of this workshop that you might have missed. They'll be up on our website in about 24 to 48 hours. So thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.